Hi and welcome to BookTube with Simon and Amy. This is going to be my review of Summer Monsters by David Sodergren. So for anybody who doesn't know who David Sodergren is, in case you're new to the channel and new to David Sodergren, he is an indie published Scottish horror author who is just an absolute legend and a diamond of a guy. I'm obsessed, like genuinely obsessed. I've read near enough everything he's written at this point. I've still got a couple of back cataloguers to get to, but I love his work. I actually had the privilege of interviewing him a couple of years ago for Indie August over on my solo channel, and he was just like the loveliest human ever. I had to like consciously remind myself not to go through Annie Wilkes, like I'm in love with his novels. So I had to like stop myself from going level 10 fangirl, but he's amazing. So if you want to support some Scottish indie horror author which will absolutely knock your socks off, I could not recommend David Sodergren enough, and this would be an awesome place to start if it's going to be your first one to pick up. But he genuinely writes so many different amazing books that if this doesn't scream your brand of horror, there will be another one that will be. Like, honestly, give me your favourite tropes, your favourite style of horror in the comments, and I will recommend you a Sodergren that will suit your specific tastes, because the man's a legend and he's nailing it every single time. So in Summer of the Monsters, our main character Lucy is 16 and her mum passed away unfortunately, and she's fallen into a bit of a bad crowd. Her dad is just completely consumed by his own grief that he hasn't really noticed, and they are really struggling financially. Her dad's an author and he hasn't managed to write a book since his wife passed away, and so he comes up with the idea that they're just going to get away, just the two of them. They're going to start a new life up in the Scottish Highlands. He's bought this big remote farmhouse with the last of their money, and this is his plan, is he's just going to lock himself down there. He's going to write, you know, Lucy's going to have a fresh start, new school, some new pals, away from everything that happened, and just have it be a bit of a reset for them both, away from the memories of, you know, their mum and wife that is sadly no longer there, and they'll be able to just start afresh. That is the plan. Obviously this is a horror novel, and so doesn't go to plan. When they arrive at their big lovely new farmhouse, there are creepy scarecrows all over the property that, you know, gets some red flags waving for Lucy a wee bit, but her dad's like, it's cool, it's the Scottish Highlands, folk are quirky, like get at it. And when they enter the property, they realise that the people who left in a real big hurry, to the point where there's still like food and clothes and bedding on the beds and like shoes at the door and coats hanging up and just like their stuff everywhere. And so again, Lucy's like, something's not quite right here, but her dad is like, they told me they had like an emergency, they just had to up and go. And so she's like, right, cool, fine, no bother, like we'll try and crack on. And then when Lucy starts school, the other kids start mentioning, you know, the local monsters, etc. And she believes that they're just trying to noise up the new girl and, you know, sort of make an arse out of her a wee bit, and, you know, just try to rile her, being in a new place. She was from Edinburgh before, so she's like, oh aye, like, make fun of me because I'm for the city type thing, until of course she comes face to face with the monsters. And that's all I'm going to say plot wise, because I didn't want to give too many spoilers away. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So this is set up north, in a wee made up town called Hellsbridge, which just so happens to be the next town over for Auchinmullen. Auchinmullen is where Maggie's grave is set, which is my favourite David Sodergren novel ever, and there are so many wee nods to Maggie's grave in here. I was like fangirling to like next level, I swear it. Like I was like reading this in bed and I was like, Simon, guess what? And he was like, aye, cool. Like, I'm glad you're pleased. But I was like geeking out all the wee references. I loved that, just as a wee Easter egg in here. And I thought that element of the book was absolutely fantastic, but I thought that Hellsbridge as a town was like super creepy. Anybody who has spent any time up in the rural parts of Scotland, like he captures it amazingly. Like, you could totally imagine Hellsbridge being this wee place and there genuinely being monsters in this wee town up north in Scotland. Like, when we were growing up, instead of going away abroad or anything like that, like, my family would go up north, so we have toured like the length and breadth of the north of Scotland. We've stayed in loads of different places, whether it's been like cottages, caravans, camping sometimes, like, we've done it all, and so, like, I'm really familiar with that part of the world, as David is as well. He explains at the end of this book that Hellsbridge is set based on somewhere where he would go with his family, but I like it just captures it amazingly, and it captures like the creepiness of this tight-knit community so well. He did the same in Maggie's Grave. It was something that really stuck out for me that I enjoyed, and he does the same thing here as well. Lucy was also a phenomenal main character. For her being 16, I think that many other authors would have found that a challenge to write a 16-year-old girl, without making her completely and utterly annoying as fuck, but he did it super well. It is believable that she is 16 while also still managing to make her likeable and that you root for her, and she isn't just eye-rollingly annoying or frustrating, which I find when some authors try to write younger characters. I will always commend David Sodergren for the way that he writes women in his books. We had this chat actually when I was interviewing him. I'll link the interview down below in case that's something you guys want to check out, but he just writes them phenomenally. Like, you know, not to sound patronising, but most male authors didn't do a great job writing women. You know, they just come across as really one-dimensional, or they come across as plot devices, or they are there for a purpose, and, you know, it's focused far more on their looks and what they can add to the story in terms of, you know, like their sexual value or whatever they can do for another character. They're there to serve other characters, whereas David always writes his women like they are actual people. What a novel idea, hey? Imagine that. But she was an amazing main character. Like, she's 16, so she doesn't always get it right, but it's done in a way that you still root for her and you really care about her. I was really touched at the end of this book, and I tend to get a bit misty-eyed when it comes to the ending of David Sodergren's books, specifically the Scottish ones for some reason, because the way he publishes is he tends to do like a book set in Scotland and then a book elsewhere, a book in Scotland, a book elsewhere, and his Scottish ones, like, they always tend to get me at the end, like I'm sitting like lump in my throat, tear down my cheek, like he always gets me. And it's no often that horror authors manage that, but his characters are just written so superbly. Like, you could just imagine them be people in your life. That's always how I feel when I read a David Sodergren, is like I've really gotten to know these people and they have become people in my life, and so then when these things happen to them, like, I really care about it. Whereas I think a lot of other horror authors, they don't put as much effort into their characters. They focus on the gore or the monsters or how it's written, and that's not the case with David Sodergren. Like, he takes such care with all the elements, but specifically his characters, which is, I think, why I enjoy them so much. This is his usual level of gore. There are quite rank scenes in here of people getting pulled apart by monsters and the monsters eating them, and blood and gore everywhere. So be aware that if that isn't your bag, then David might not be the author for you, because you tend to get a couple of buckets of gore per novel. I really enjoy it though, and I think that he has this brilliant ability making the gory scenes in his books, like, they're really detailed, they're really gruesome, but also somehow fun. Like, it gives me like 80s slasher vibes, 80s monster movie vibes, every time I would read one of those scenes, and it was just like a fun time. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Something else that I really enjoy about David Sodergren's books is music is such a huge part of his process. When he's writing a novel, he has specific songs that are in his head during certain scenes, or like he maybe just has it on in the background while he's writing to give him like a specific type of vibe. And he always puts like the music list at the back of his novels as to what he's been listening to, which I just think is phenomenal, and that's something that I really enjoy to have a wee look at and just see sort of what he's been listening to as he's been writing. So it's just a wee geeky thing for me that I think is quite fascinating, and I like getting into like somebody else's mindset as to when they were writing it or what they envisioned playing at certain scenes. Like, I think that is really cool, so something else for you to check out as well. And I just want to say that I have supported David Sodergren for a really long time now, across my various different booktube channels at this point, but I think that he's absolutely fantastic, and he's taken the plunge now that he is full-time writing. He's given up his day job and this is it for him, so I would really urge you to please go and support him. He really deserves it. He's fantastic, and I know that a couple of his books have become popular over on TikTok and stuff like that, but like, everything he's written is worth a read, so don't just go for your big ones that have become popular on TikTok. Like, honestly, please go and support him. He thoroughly deserves it. I'm actually going to link his Patreon in my description box as well, because it's only a couple of quid a month if you want to go and support him. You get extra content, you get pug pics. He's got the most adorable pug Boris ever, but I would recommend going and supporting him, buying one of his books, taking a punt on it. You know, if it's something that you're maybe not too sure about, chances are I've read it, so feel free to ask me and I can, you know, let you know if I think it's up your street or your cup of tea, if I'm familiar with your reading tastes. But honestly, please go and support him. He's absolutely incredible, and we need to be supporting more indie authors. It's becoming harder and harder for them to be getting published, especially when it comes to horror. You know, you walk into even your bigger chain bookstores now and they've maybe got like one single shelf that is horror compared to 1,000 shelves for other genres. So we need to be supporting our horror authors, especially our indie ones, because 9 times out of 10 they're writing the better horror. You know, if it's between a Stephen King, who by the way I love, or a Joe Hill, or any of your other big horrors compared to a David Sodergren, I'm picking up a David Sodergren every single time. So please go and support him and show him some love. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you're enjoying everything that you're reading at the moment. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!